Yeah, the context of colonization, I think, is a very important facet of where we are in New Mexico and how that informs the way that we frame our food. I think the most critical thing concerning any type of food that we have in this state is water. Um, Water, access to land. I think you had mentioned some of that, right? In terms of like the framework through that by which a lot of people here view food. And at the end of the day, if there's no food, there's no land, we can't grow, right? Um, that's also to say that we have to understand that like most of the food that we're eating that's coming into the state is not grown here. Most of the food that is grown here is not eaten here, right? We're part of a larger industrial food system that makes it so that the food that we're eating, local food, right? The food that organic farmers here in Albuquerque are growing is not the majority of what folks are eating here. I think a lot of the poverty that we experience in our communities, we can link all the way back to colonization here in this place. Um, One, our food systems and the way that we had food systems and the way that we sustained communities before even before the industrial revolution was something that was sustainable, right? And I think that's the name of the game is sustainable, right? We were able to sustain our communities. The sizes of our communities were dependent on the our availability to water and food. I definitely think that when we talk about poverty in this state, we have to look at the way that land has moved, right? The way that water has been controlled. Who controls the Rio Grande? Like who controls the main water source in this state? Um, who's controlling the land? Where did the land go? It's still right under our feet, but when did that land get written over to somebody else, right? Um, People in New Mexico weren't necessarily asset rich, or not asset rich, sorry, cash rich, but people had assets. People had access to land. And now, that's not necessarily the case. New Mexico is also a region of the country that is a national sacrifice zone. Um, I think one of the biggest things to recognize is that most of the food initiatives that we have in the state, just like most of everything else, is coming from oil and gas. And there's a very big bite the hand that feeds you feeling that I have when all of that money is coming from oil and gas, which is directly causing the environmental issues that we're experiencing, right? Um, there's a very big irony in all of that. On food, I would tell them to hire more gardeners, hire our young people. There, I used to work in like youth development, where we were youth mentorship programs, where we were having students from the international district that were struggling and going through life in the international districts come out to the garden, and then they learn and they work with us, and some of them has continued to learn and work with us, and there's no jobs for these young people to steward land. So, if the city has all this land, all this vacant space, make salaried positions for these young people to come in and to tend the land in their community, right? That's the dream. I mean, that's what I want. I want to see our city paying young people to grow food and that food going into the hands of community members.